Just people have different John, Jon, Joh.
I have a spiritual name too. It's It's Gyana Gamya. It's JNANAGAMYA and then space, capital D.
D as in dog?
Dog, yeah. ASA.
Yeah. I'm going to just do an underscore right there so I remember that there's actually a space right there.
Cool.
Do you mind just off the bat giving me a little bit more background about the spiritual name?
Spiritual name.
How did you come to that?
Yeah, so I am a practicing Hare Krishna.
Awesome.
And we go through a process called initiation where you're formally confirmed into the faith, sort of like communion in Catholicism. And I served as a monk for 2 years.
Okay.
And was formally initiated in India 2 years ago. And my name means one who is on the path of knowledge, or one who is seeking knowledge. And the Das means the servant of. It's a Sanskrit word.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Now, like I kind of mentioned earlier, we're super interested in exploring different beliefs that people have about the world. Is there anything specific to you that you truly believe with a lot of confidence that has an influence on your life? Anything to do with Hare Krishna?
Oh yeah,
or just I mean, I figured that, but I wanted to leave it open in case you wanted to talk about something else. But
I mean, my faith is we're lacto-vegetarians, but I'm a vegan. I strongly believe in not harming animals for sustenance, and I've been a vegetarian for about 6 or 7 years, and I've been a vegan for about 2 years. I just kind of took it to the next level. I actually get a lot of flack from some of the devotees for that because, well, they believe that milk is like a critical ingredient in brain development and things like that, but
so vegan except for milk for them, essentially.
Yeah, they don't do fish, eggs, or meat, but they can do
dairy, milk, dairy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, interesting. So, if you don't mind me just clarifying real quick with vegan, you said you're a vegan because you don't believe you're for not harming animals for sustenance.
Correct.
Now, if you can obtain animal products and sustenance without harming animals, like let's say growing meat in a laboratory or something like that, or growing fur in a petri dish or something, would you be in favor of that, or would even that consumption of animal products without harming or institutional or systemic violence still be something you're not in favor of?
I would suppose that it would depend on what sort of methods that they used in order to replicate.
Okay, like get the stem cell?
Right, yeah. I'm kind of on the fence about that one because I haven't really done a lot of thinking about that. I suppose if there was no actual harm done to any of the animals, then I'm okay with it. Like, for instance, I eat a lot of the mock meats like seitan and tempeh and things like that.
Okay.
They taste delicious.
Yeah.
But no animal was harmed in order to get
produce it.
Yeah, so I'm okay with that.
Okay.
There's some people that are real hard line. They're like, if it looks like meat and it tastes like meat, then,
that's what I was curious.
So yeah.
Okay, cool. Now, with the Hare Krishna, that's not a practice or tradition that I'm entirely familiar with. I've got a little bit of surface knowledge of it, but within that practice, is there do they hold any particular beliefs about the world that would be unique to Hare Krishnas, where that particular group would believe these things as opposed to other groups?
Well, many of the schools of thought in Buddhism are very similar to Hare Krishna and Hinduism because they came from that. Buddha is actually an incarnation of Krishna who was sent to deceive atheistic men from misusing the Vedas, because there's actually prescription for animal sacrifice in the Vedas, believe it or not. But people were misusing that to eat meat, essentially. Like how they did in the Bible, where they would have like burnt offerings and things like that. That was like your prayers to God. That was before like Jesus and the Messiahs and whatnot came along. That was how they
had a relationship.
Right. So that was kind of the thing that they did. But then that practice became antiquated.
Okay.
And so there were people that were saying, "Oh, but it's in here, so we're going to still use that in order to fulfill our own selfish desires." And Buddha comes and says, "Wait a second, hang on, follow me, guys. Don't believe any of this bullshit." But really, he was, he was Krishna, and he was basically transcendentally tricking them, so to speak. So
I like that word, transcendentally tricking them.
Yeah, so he did it for a higher purpose. But as far as views that are unique,
well, if you don't mind me just exploring real quick, you mentioned that Buddha or the Bodhisattvas, the Buddha that you're referring to was an incarnation of Krishna.
Correct.
Can you just explain real quick what you mean by that?
So there's what's called a Shaktavesha avatar, and I don't even know if I can spell that.
I'm just going to do avatar. Don't
yeah,
worry. That I can spell.
Yeah, there's what's called different avatars of Krishna, which an avatar, a Shaktavesha avatar specifically, is somebody that descends from a specific to a specific point for a specific time for a specific purpose. Like Buddha was one of those. Muhammad, Christ.
Okay,
you know, some
these
people,
big figures.
Yeah,
okay.
Some people would argue like Haile Selassie, where were we going with that? What was it,
so you had mentioned that the Buddha was an incarnation of Krishna.
Correct.
And so by incarnation of Krishna, what exactly do you mean? First of all, with Krishna, are you saying like a literal entity that is Krishna, or is it more of a metaphorical type thing?
No, yeah, absolutely, like a literal entity, somebody that is, manifests himself in a different form, much like in the Old Testament with the Bible, how God manifests himself as like a burning bush. Okay. So different shades of the same color, so to speak. Yeah.
Okay, and so then if we could just explore real quick the aspect of Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
How so with Krishna, just to make sure that I have an understanding of what Krishna is for you. Krishna is before I go any further, do you mind just explaining in a little bit more detail what Krishna means to you? Like, first, I'm familiar with some people ascribing God qualities to it. I don't know what. So, like I said, some people have talked about it being completely metaphorical. How would it be for you?
Oh, well, no, Krishna is absolutely, in my belief system, is God.
Okay.
He's commonly referred to in the Vedas as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, meaning that he is... Krishna is actually an avatar of Vishnu. He's the 8th avatar of Vishnu, but he's one and the same. He's like, Vishnu is like, this is how it was described to me. Vishnu is like Krishna when he's at work, and then Krishna is a cowherd boy that just plays and like has friends and wives, and just he's kind of a happy-go-lucky type character. But he is God, and he has different manifestations. Like Shiva and Brahma, they're all...
Okay, I've heard of some of those.
They're part of what's called the Trimurti, Krishna, Vishnu being the maintainer, Shiva being the destroyer, and Brahma being the creator. Yeah, okay, yeah, so you know.
Okay, yeah, just a little familiar. So,
yeah.
So with Krishna being, for you, the idea of God, how confident, if we were to talk about the existence of Krishna, how confident would you say you are in Krishna's actual literal existence? If we were to use a scale of like 0 to 100, where 100 is you're 100% confident, there's no way you can be mistaken, and 0 is 0% confidence that you can there's a high chance that you probably are mistaken, where would you put yourself on that scale?
Absolutely 100%.
100% as in you cannot be mistaken?
I cannot, yeah.
Okay, and what is putting you at that 100%?
Well, I guess it all relates to personal experience, because when I first heard about the Hare Krishnas, it was in high school, and I listened to a lot of the Krishna core bands like 108, Shelter, the Cro-Mags, things like that.
Nice.
And I always thought it was like kind of unusual that all these like kind of like New York tough guy type bands would ascribe to a religion where the people danced around in the airports in bed sheets and things like that. This is bizarre to me, so
crazy.
It didn't make any sense to me. And then I was actually in the Marine Corps, and I was getting ready to fly to Japan, and some of the devotees approached me, and they sold me a book, and I was like, I don't know if I believe all this, whatever. I just gave them some money to pacify them.
Was it like a Bhagavad Gita, or?
No, it was a book called The Journey of Self-Discovery.
Okay.
It's like one of the supplementary books to the Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
But yeah, I started to read it, and then I just said, no, I'm not going to read this. It doesn't like really jive with me.
Okay.
And then to make a long story short, I was a Wall Street protester like years later.
Oh, okay.
And then I found that book just kind of like happenstance. Like I got locked out of my house, and I went out to my shed to go like look for a key or just even something to do until somebody came back and unlocked the house. And I found that book because I left it out there. I was like, I'll never read this,
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, here it is, and then I actually read it, and it was like light bulb went off in my head, like everything was just clicking with me. They talk about a lot of things in there, like communism, which I largely ascribe to a lot of socialistic ideals. I think that our country could really benefit from them, and they talk about that in there. But rather than with communism in the secular sense of the word, where it's you're giving everything to the state, it's you're giving everything to Krishna, and you're giving everything back to God. And so that really resonated with me, and I was like, oh, this makes sense. And since I started meditating and practicing with japa, I notice a lot of things like in synchronicity, like things that I ask for and that I pray about, and that just they may not manifest instantly, but I see how Krishna works, and it's amazing. Kind of to complement this too, I read a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and it's kind of a misleading title because a lot of people think it would be like a prosperity type book, which it is, but there's also spiritual, very esoteric type undertones to it too, because the guy that was the author of it, Napoleon Hill, his son was deaf, and they told him his son would never hear. And he said, I don't believe that, and I don't subscribe to that. And so he started working on a way so that his son would hear again. And he developed some sort of rudimentary technology to where his son was able to regain some of his hearing. And so that was great to me, which that book was also recommended me by HR of the Bad Brains.
And just to clarify, did the technology that he used to get his son to heal again, how did that relate to the existence of Krishna?
So, I have always wanted to be an actor.
Okay.
And I found it to be impossible for me to get out here and just do it,
Okay.
I was like, this is a major milestone, and I don't know how I'm going to be able to make it out here, how I'm going to be able to maintain. I'm still struggling with that,
Yeah, welcome to LA.
Yeah. So, but once I really started just genuinely asking, I was like, and praying for not excess or abundance, but just, things to make me successful and be able to direct me on the right path in life. It started to manifest, and it was given to me. So it was just a simple question of just, I want this is my desire. And they say in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna will fulfill all desires. He might not do it in this lifetime, but he will do it eventually for you.
Okay. And so just to make sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but you believe in the existence of Krishna at 100% because of personal experience. And for you, the personal experience was reading a book that for you, it really, really clicked with you, it really resonated with you, and for you, a light bulb went.
And then I read all the books.
And then you read all the books,
Yeah.
and that further reinforced and solidified.
Right, yeah.
Okay. And so just to distinguish, I guess a better way of phrasing it is, how would you distinguish your journey from someone like a Muslim or a Christian, that for them, they believe in the Christian God at 100% because of their personal experience of reading the Bible, and then all of the other books going along with them, and a light bulb clicked with them, and it totally matched everything that they were thinking about, and their prayer, when they pray, they feel like their prayers are answered, and if they're not answered, it's because God has a reason for it.
Yeah.
And similar thing with Islam. So how do you determine, how do you distinguish yours from theirs? Do you think that all of them coexist at the same time, or is one mistaken over the other? Or?
Oh, no, I don't think there is any one path to God.
Okay.
I feel that, and even our scriptures teach about this, they say that, you know, even a little bit of advancement on any sort of path towards a spiritual understanding and relationship is eventually going to get you to the main goal.
Oh, no worries.
Phone?
And we'll wrap up. Sure, I totally have taken more than 5 minutes. Okay, but
I don't mind talking about this. Yeah, no,
fascinating.
It's I don't mind talking about it at all. Yeah, it's yeah, any sort of advancement on any sort of spiritual path that, you know, is obviously rooted in some sort of legitimate scriptures is going to get you there. And my appreciation for other faiths and spiritual backgrounds is actually stronger now because of practicing this. You know, different groups will, you know, they have different ways of believing. I grew up largely a-religious, but then I started going to a Pentecostal church when I was in the South. Yeah,
that's a powerful experience.
And you know, just that particular group, you know, there's one way to God, and that's it, you know. And I'm like, you know, but the way I see it, at least those people, they're trying. You know, they might have kind of a rudimentary understanding of it, you know, and that's not all Christians. That's not all religious groups, you know. Some of them have a very, very tolerant and universal like worldview, and I can appreciate that. I can get behind that. So I think that you know, we all here's some. Okay, let me give you one.
Please.
One way that a friend described it to me, he says, you know, God is like a father, and we're all his children, and we approach, you know, like with my sister and we approach our father in different ways, you know, like whereas my sister's like, oh, I need some money, like I really like, Dad, I need some money, you know, you know, like
that makes
it's,
sense. Okay,
you know,
I like
so it might be.
But you're all talking to the same father.
But we're it's the same father that we're communicating with. We just have different methods of getting in touch with him.
Now, do you think it's possible for someone to read a book, and they read this book, and within this book, let's just say hypothetically that the contents of the book are false or mistaken, or the person's reading this book and they arrive at a false or mistaken conclusion because for them this light bulb, or I guess a better way to phrase it is, do you think it's possible for someone to read a book, have this light bulb go off in them, have them come to this conclusion, and it turns out that this conclusion be mistaken?
I suppose it could. You know, there's definitely been charlatans and you know, people that have been misusing the name of God in order for, you know, some sort of selfish motivation.
So if it could be the case that someone can read a book and consequential books after and have this feeling, have this light bulb go off in them that leads them to a conclusion that could be mistaken, how have you determined that you going through the same process has led you to a conclusion that's not mistaken?
Well, because it's stood the test of time since years. It's been around, at least in writing, for 5,000 years, but the knowledge of the Vedas is actually pretty timeless. So
and just to clarify, do you think that just because something can stand the test of time, that adds some weight to its legitimacy or its truth? Or
I would hope so. Yeah.
Well, to maybe phrase it a different way, do you think it's possible for something to stand the test of time and be false or be mistaken?
I suppose that's possible too. You know, just based on my personal experience, you know, it really goes down to faith. There's a lot of science that's involved in it. You know, like Vedic science has determined the time that the universe has existed, and you know, like how far certain stars and planets and galaxies are away from other. This was before modern science had ever discovered these things. So that, you know, the fact that there's actual scientific evidence that backs a lot of what's being said in there, that also lends to the legitimacy of it. But you know, it really starts with you. Like, you have to believe, you know. And I mean, I'm sure there's people that believe that Jim Jones was like the Messiah of the world, you know.
And they would say they used faith to come to that.
There's also different qualities and characteristics of many of the what we call like acharyas in our lineage that they should possess in order for them to be considered like legitimate and relevant, you know. And if these qualities don't exist, like in the
that's a red flag.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a book that we read called the Nectar of Devotion, and one of the things that they mention is the 26 qualities of a devotee. And a devotee should embody
all 26,
or at least most of them.
So
you know,
not all,
because
it doesn't necessarily need to be.
Well, I mean, we are human and we're flawed and we're material conditioned. So there are people that
some could be aspirational rather than actually being embodied.
And like the person that led me to Krishna consciousness, he's a great guy. He struggles, like I know he has problems, but that to me lent to kind of the realism of it, because he wasn't pretending to be, something that he wasn't. I just saw him as a friend and as a brother, and so he's like, hey, this helps me, this might help you. And so I said, okay, but I mean, if there's questionable activities that people are doing,
that leads to
i.e. Jim Jones, David Koresh, someone like that, then it's that's up to an individual to determine.
Critical thinking,
right?
Sense. Makes sense.
Yeah.
To just go back real quick, you mentioned faith. What do you said you said it ultimately boils down to having faith. You just have to have faith. What do you mean by faith? Faith is different for different people.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could. I used to go to 12-step meetings like years ago, and people could have faith in a chair, and say that that's my God. And
so, if you had to give a definition of faith, what would that mean for you?
A definition of faith.
So we can work with something concrete.
I think the best definition of faith would probably be. That's a good question.
No worries. I'll give you a second.
Probably having a higher understanding based on some sort of spiritual or religious teachings. I don't know. It's really hard to say because faith it's one of those words that's kind of hard to encapsulate because it is different for everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm writing this down just so I can keep track, but don't feel like it's locking you in. If you think of a better way of articulating it, please feel free of you don't have I don't want you to feel like, oh crap, I gave him this definition and now I'm stuck. Type of thing.
It's probably not the best definition.
It's no worries.
Say trust in the unknown.
Okay.
We don't necessarily see Krishna, as far as you see him